Hey guys, welcome to another session of RBTL, or Reading Between the Lines. This is the July 6th edition. I'm making this as the game is in maintenance right now, but I wanted to talk about some of the things that I talked about in this, and I think it goes beyond even just like, the maintenance is done, and then let's see what the, what the actual update and event, how it actually runs. I have my questions here, I'll pose them, but I don't think that matters. But what does matter, I think, is the conversation I want to have, or I want to discuss, and I want to talk about, which is like an event like this. What does it mean for the future of Epic 7? Some speculation, but we're gonna jump down into it, and I'm not going to talk about anything else outside of the ones that I think are, kind of important. I would say this though, for this video though, I will talk about the event mainly, and again how this cascades down, and my foresight for future. But I'll also talk about the EEs. I think that's worth talking about in this session. So the first things first is this special event battle stage. Okay, so you get like a regular side story, but then you get this special stage, and it looks like it's like a hybrid of what's it called, advent side story, with like some well, I'll talk about the mechanics, but I think a couple things that stood out to me again is like it does definitely cater to more whales, or people who spend, or maybe who get lucky, again needing multiple copies of the artifact, multiple copies of the hero, potentially, and it's half-half, right? It depends on how you view game design. Like, is this more scummy, as a free-to-play player, not saying myself, but from a free-to-play player's perspective, sometimes they're just like, oh wait, how do we compete with whales? From the whales perspective, or people who spend, they'll feel more incentivized to keep spending, right? Because they get a value out of it. So it's good and bad. I won't say which side I'm on here, but in terms of just, I think it's important to point out. So viewing Act 8 of Chapter 1's story will unlock the event battle stage, Suspicious Spring, and event battle consists of 2 phases, and you can form a total of 2 teams, 7 heroes on the team formation screen, deployed in the key side of main hero, blah blah blah. That's not that important. Here are the kind of key points, I think. It requires 30 energy to enter, because this gives us a good idea of how does this compare to Hunt, right? I think mainly people are like, well, this event is insane, it's better than Hunt, and I would say yes, right? But because, keep in mind, it is time limited, so realistically it's kind of like an Artina craft event slash a Hunt buff weekend, but merged 2 kind of concepts together, not fully, 2 concepts together to create this event, which is kind of new, it's kind of fresh, it's cool, but like, it is farming something that's way more important than, let's say, for example, what Advent Side Story gives, right? So what Advent Side Story gives is the substat modifiers, but now we're getting the ability from this patch onwards, the ability to also reset gear. So because the 2 mechanics, substat modification gems and resetting gear, actually go in conflict with each other, this type of event now feels more incentivizing, because you get fresh gear at a quicker pace, right? So just in case people don't know what I'm talking about, and if you're watching my video, you're probably a veteran, so you know what I'm talking about. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll try to explain it as I continue. But anyways, 30 energy to enter, so it costs more than a Hunt, just keep that in mind, but not much if you think about it. As the difficulty progresses, the amount of stigma, gold, and event currency we'll earn will increase. We'll have to compare, like, is it 1-for-1 good ratio for stigma, gold per energy versus Hunt? I'm pretty sure it is, again, like I said, because it's time limited. They want to incentivize this kind of this kind of hype, this kind of drive for players to like spam Leaf and then buy even potentially Leaf packs or whatever. I'm surprised they didn't offer Burning Passion packs during this week, but I think people would have hit it up even if they didn't usually do it, especially if you're acquiring gear. You can acquire a level 85 epic equipment accessory of the desired set from counter penetration resist as the battle stage rewards for week 1 and 2. So it's battle stage rewards, and it's not talking about the crafting. So here in this this screenshot, obtainable reward is a drop. I'm curious if it's like a first time completion reward. I'm assuming it is. So because if it, and I know that this is talking about what's coming up in the bottom of the page, but in terms of like what's here, obtainable reward, it feels like it's a drop, right? Because you got reforging materials as well, and then you got the event currency. So it's like, is there a possibility of even equipment dropping out of those 3 sets maybe for week 1 and 2? And if that is the case, then 100% this is better than hunts, right? Because you might not, or it just is like the first clear reward to get the items. That might be the case, but again, it doesn't elaborate, so I won't spend too much time on it. But if that becomes like the standard for like big events like this, maybe it's all the summer events going into future, that's quite a big change in terms of how players can acquire gear. By clearing stage 5, which can only be completed once during the event period, you acquire exclusive stamps that can be used for decorative profile cards. That's pretty cool. I suspected that they will add more profile card stuff, which is nice. It's kind of like adding emotes to specific events. People will grind them, people will try to get them. They're like, exclusive for that time being, so why not? Especially player cards right now is super hot. They know it for sure. The event currency is the sparkling sea soda, and then this is, of course, I'll talk about it, but like the more artifacts you have, the more currency you get. So that part is like the whale portion. But now with this new kind of battle mechanic, even though it's borrowing similar concepts to Advent Side Story, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna have like some mechanics, and people are gonna come up with PvE guides on most efficient teams, how to hunt it faster, and people will follow those guides, especially if you have, let's say, infinite resources to hunt, because like the big bangers at the end here. But as you can see, there is a memory imprint grade and how this affects your team's performance, right? So you have base stuff, increase attack, health, 30% effectiveness, but as you go down to triple S, ally attacks increase the damage up by 120%. So again, because these are time limited events, and again, I'm speaking on people who have infinite resources, or maybe you've saved 1,000 leaf up to this point. If you're gonna use your leaf, you've hoarded for like 5 years or whatever, this is the event. At least right now, this is the type of event you want to start using it on. So I highly recommend it. But this is what I also mean. If players are being time gated to how much they can farm, but they have infinite energy, I'm gonna put infinite in air quotes, then of course having triple S of her is gonna make a huge difference, right? We're talking about from even 1 imprint is 20% to 120%, right? You're doubling the damage, which is insane, in terms of, again, people wanting to grind it. So I know that a lot of people are thinking of potentially imprinting like their top model Lulukas or whatever into her, just so, I mean, and also she's a pretty good hero, so I'm gonna make a separate initial thoughts video on her. That won't be part of this, but she's not bad. So I think that the triple S is pretty good, especially on her compared to right now top model and blue Luluka. But that being said, a lot of incentivization there, but the biggest one is this, the enhanced artifact, because in some of the bigger side stories, and I would consider this one a big side story, you get usually like dual artifact effects, right? You get some free artifacts that also like gives you some enhancement, but then you get the pullable artifact. But for this event, for the sparkling soda thing, you only get this artifact, which is you have to pull, right? And Smilegate hasn't implemented any system where the pity can guarantee you artifact, so like a player can't select a hero or artifact, and sometimes if your account is just seeded, you're gonna get triple S Summer Luluka, but like 1 artifact plus the one in the powder shop. So for those who have that kind of account seed, sucks to be you, because it like people who get 40% more in terms of getting a max limit broken artifact are just gonna get a way better value for the amount of energy they spend, right? So it kind of sucks, to be honest, for people who get unlucky or have no resources to pull. And the thing is, even if you're an Omega Whale, you can end up pulling like 2 triple S Luluka before you hit a max limit broken artifact. It's just like sometimes RNG just works that way. So in terms of this, I don't like, it's cool, everybody's gonna be chasing it, and everybody's complaining it, right? So don't get me wrong, everybody's gonna be complaining about these type of systems. It's like wow, whale feature, but at the same time, everybody's gonna be rushing it. It's kind of like a Black Friday sale. If you live in North America, you know what Black Friday is. But people are gonna rush and people are gonna do it, and they're gonna like spam Skystone, they're gonna try to get the artifact max and then start farming, right? So there's a couple things that, like, hopefully right now your account has the bookmarks ready, because you're fighting against the clock, again, assuming that you have infinite energy, you're trying to pull the artifact, you're trying to pull Max Limit Broken, but you also have to farm the event, right? So you can't like spend a whole week, you know, grinding arena and earning a free-to-play Skystone and then refreshing shop for bookmarks and then potentially pulling an artifact and then start farming, right? So ideally, the most ideal scenario is like everything I've said so far is fitting for a whale. It's the best situation for a whale. It would suck if you're very low on resources, especially we're not too far off that Benimaru slime collab. Like we're not, like it's been what, a month, almost 2 months. So I'm still recovering from that, and I didn't even pull Benimaru that hard. I just went for the Tachi artifact. But anyways, mileage shop. So here's the big thing, right? So after acquiring the sea soda, you get souvenirs, illustrations, epic equipment, all that kind of stuff. You probably want to farm it. You probably want to clean the shop out. But the exchange will remain open for 7 days after the event even ends. So at least you have 5 weeks. So if you think about it, you have 5 weeks, but the first 2 weeks are at least not the most coveted sets. So pen, as you can see on the image there, pen, counter, and resistance set. But most people will probably buy the illustration. I mean, she's not bad looking, right? Don't get me wrong. Like I thought that Luluka had no marshmallow pillows, but apparently she does, at least in this pose. So I mean, most people are probably gonna buy that, and you're probably gonna buy the souvenir exchange. 100% you're gonna get the reversion mana stone, because that's, you know, there's another topic. So this is more or less a big patch. I don't know about the epic equipment charms, I guess so as well. And then I think most people will just, you know, clear it out. Maybe not the pet summon tickets, which is cropped off there. If you have all the pets maxed anyway, like there's no point. I would just go like straight for epic equipment exchange. Once you get all the currencies, like the souvenirs down, go for that. But anyway, so yeah, so it's no longer be displayed. That's not important. I guess this is important. So after receiving rewards, watching full on final episode of chapter 1 and 2, exchange will count for week 1 and 2 souvenirs item will be increased. You can find more details about the maximum exchange limit list in the in-game information. So we'll see what that's like. It's not that important right now, I guess. But special illustration, I'll just skip down. This is the big thing, right? So epic equipment exchange. You can acquire a level 85 equipment or accessory of the desired set from counter, penetration, resist by exchanging 400 event currency in weeks 1 and 2. Now, most of the time, you'll probably be hitting somewhere near 100, maybe not 100 because you only have one artifact going off, 40% of currency. But again, it just depends on what the max level currency drop is. But you get 40% of it, but let's just say it takes like 5 runs, so about like, you know, 150 energy to get 1 equipment. That's technically still better than hunts, right? I think someone will probably do the math, but the good thing, of course, is that you actually get the set you can choose. And at least for week 3 and 4, there is speed set. Now, pen set's not a bad thing, but pen set's not universal. So I've talked about that before. Being a universal set means that let's say counter set, you roll like flat HP or flat HP ring or flat HP like necklace or something. It's still more or less usable compared to something like a pen set, right? So like pen set is risky. If you're gonna chase this week, pen set's a bit risky. You probably want to push, well, you don't get to select which slot. That's the thing. Left side, right side, you don't get to select it. It could be anything. So like I said, it's kind of like, it's not exactly an Artina event. It's not exactly a conversion. And it's kind of like a mix of the epic craft that we have with hunts. So it's a good like RNG mix, but it can get expensive. But I think again, if you go for with universal sets, you have a lower likelihood of failing. So I would definitely suggest counter set if you're gonna farm this week, right? Counter set. And then maybe some pen or resist, whatever you need, but counter set's the safest. Now for week 3 and 4, it's speed, hit, and torrent set. Now torrent set is absolutely monstrous RNG, I would not even consider it. Just go speed set, right? Because realistically, again, the end game is like who can get the speed. And as I talked about before, the player cards as the speed badge, it's really clear what Epic 7 really wants to emphasize. So 100% you go speed. There's no reason to like do any of these. To get torrent sets that are usable, it just would cost way too much RNG. But speed is universal, and speed, if you hit speed and you can get your 25 speed badge stuff, it's worth, right? So I think a lot of people are going to be saving most of their free energy, or at least their leaf, into weeks 3 and 4, which you could also, I guess, pre-farm, because technically it shouldn't be a different currency. You could pre-farm for weeks 3 and 4, just don't use it all onto the counter pen and resist. I don't know if I'm gonna dabble in counter pen resist. I think speed for me is the highest value for this event, but that's just my thoughts. But again, it costs a lot. You need a maximum broken artifact ideally if you want to min-max. That costs RNG, and then you need a lot of energy to do it. So if you're like an Omega Whale and you have like you hired a whole team to be able to farm for you 24/7 or something, then there's gonna be quite a gap between, let's say, someone who is free to play versus someone who is spending. But again, that goes back to the philosophy of like, don't they deserve it because they're spending? That's a whole thing I won't get into. But so that's what I wanted to talk about for the event itself. It's a good event in general. It's just, it sets a different future, This is something that we didn't expect. Now the modification stones, let's talk about that right now. The equipment reset. Okay, so a couple things. Why I said that, this event is kind of like an Advent side story, but at the same time it's counterintuitive in terms of game design. It's because equipment with modified substats cannot be reset, which means that all your hard work of assuming, okay, so obviously it doesn't completely collide in terms of conflict, but assuming you spent like way more energy on the Advent side story because at the time you were convinced, and I was one of the pushers on people like farm the Advent side stories, get the gems, especially on the first round, the first time the 3 elements came around. The second round I got really bored with it and I just didn't bother farming that hard, which I'm glad, because now we get to see the reset equipment mechanics and how this system works. And if you can't modify your substats, wouldn't it feel bad if you had a perfect equipment? Let's say it's a speed set attack ring, and you had speed, crit damage, crit rate, and flat attack, and it rolled decent into crit damage and speed, but not super high, and maybe it rolled a couple into flat attack, but you had a 3 crit rate base, and you modified it into a 5 crit rate base. How sad would that be that you can't reset that piece now? So realistically, it's kind of like the Advent side stories and people who modded their gear a lot to min-max that, that extra 1% crit because they missed a crit in RTA, 99% crit, so they rage gemmed and they got a 5% crit out, and they're like, yes, I'm good. That sucks, right? I checked my gear. I only have 2 attack rings on speed set that has perfect DPS stats that are untouched in terms of conversion. Substats, and 2 crit damage necks that are untouched with perfect DPS that have no substats. Every other piece I've either min-maxed or I swapped an ER to flat attack or something like that. And I'm just like, oh man, that sucks. But here's the thing, it's not completely broken because each piece can only be reset 5 times and it can't be reset after it reaches its limit. So that's the history, the full history of the gear. It's risky, but it's also worth the risk in like assuming that you have pieces of gear that have perfect starting subs, but it low rolled. I think in those situations, that 5 times it's worth the risk to roll something that is higher gear score, whether it is a 25 speed banger or not. It's still worth the roll. So I think the system is still good. Again, forecasting, it takes a reversion mana stone. In this event, we have it in the souvenir shop. And there are some rules to it, but I don't think I need to talk about that. Like it has to be +3 or higher, which is not a big deal, to be honest. But like, you know, the conversation on like, oh, they're gonna add these stones to like gear packs or whatever, and you can't blame them for doing it. And also just to note that the accessories and the left side equipment have different gems, so that's just something like, you know, something to know. Most likely the accessory gems are going to be harder to get, but even if you're getting at the same rate, it's like they time gate you, even though each gear has only five lives. It's good that they cap it, 100%. It's good that they cap it, so there's a limitation on how broken the system can be. So I'm very glad that they implemented that. But yes, it's just more of like accumulation of the gems. If it's time gated, everybody is fair, cool. But I think everybody can think, you know, without, it's not rocket science that they're probably gonna add it to some kind of pack. Maybe not even gear pack. Maybe it will be just some incentive to buy like special celebration packs, event packs, or stuff like that, right? But I'm pretty sure in terms of the free-to-play time gate, they'll most likely do it with the side stories. But it says here more areas where these materials can be obtained will be added in future updates. We don't know exactly yet, right? People are hopeful that maybe, hey, the silver transmit stone system has been pretty outdated, it needs a little love. You know, a lot of systems in this game have currency that are just like fluff currency. So I was saying before on a stream, Trials currency, the wisdom gaze, is actually very, very low value. That's why not a lot of people try hard in that content, but I guess it's still content, right? So I mean, it could be some time gated thing there. Once a month, buy with wisdom gaze. This incentivizes people to play it, even though I kind of wish they won't, because I don't want to play it. Yeah, it's just a couple notes on the when you're enhancing or resetting the gear, and I won't get into that. That's not as important, I think. For me, Celine skin, should we talk about it? I mean, it's a really good skin. I mean, I don't even like buying skins, but this skin is actually really good because it enhances her look a lot. There are YouTube videos on it, her S3 animation, so I don't know, maybe. But man, 1800 Skystone, pretty expensive. Feels like I could use that for hunting the event, right? So it's tough, man. It's really hard. Okay, let's talk about the equipment, exclusive equipment. I'll end this session for RBTL. So first things first is SSB. I'm with my friends. Increase the damage of You're Not Cute by 10%, and which is her passive AOE. Dispels one buff from the caster before attacking when using You're Not Cute. In my opinion, this is a very, very, very strong EE. All right. So in terms of I'm with my friends, 1, dispelling the debuff one is insanely good. The increased damage probably won't matter unless you're using SSB to one-shot Wyvern. I think in the long run of a PvP fight, that won't change too much. But your dispelling one debuff is a huge thing, because SSB is so passive that, let's say your support, your despeller or something can't rotate quick enough to get her despelled, and she's so slow in terms of her usual build, she's so base speed, that having some kind of automated dispel is insanely high value. And also you're getting 14% attack out of it because she does so much damage from Rengar specialty drink. This is like probably one of her best stats. Honestly, SSB is a hero that outside of speed, almost any stat works. HP, defense, attack, like she just basically needs stats, crit rate. But I think overall this is a decent design to SSB's EE. And I guess she has been one of the oldest, if not the oldest summer hero, isn't she? So I guess it's time to exclusive equipment, and it's not too broken. The thing is, I don't think that with this EE she becomes like meta again. No way. But it's like it does improve her in terms of one of her disadvantages is that she's so slow. If she gets she gets like attack down or something, you know, she may not be useful for a full turn, and she's so slow, right? So the second thing is 10%. What's really funny is that we had this data mined, at least the icon, that hair thingy, data mined so long ago that I totally forgot she was supposed to have an EE, but they pulled it, right? So it's 12% crit rate, which means it's pretty insane value on T-Siren. She has pretty good base speed, so lifesteal T-Sirens with proper gear with extra 12 crit rate can go like 220 speed on lifesteal set. with retaining damage, or of course you could, you know, do more damage and then, you know, keep the speed at whatever you had. Whatever, 12 crit rate is insane for her as a pure DPS who has self-survival, and most likely going to be on lifesteal. Lunge is going to be my go-to for the EE. Absorb some of the damage dealt as health when using lunge. And I think, if I remember correctly, one of her passive aspects is that the lower HP she has, the stronger she is too, right? So if you have like T-Stern on Alexa's basket, and your your S1s, even with lifesteal, usually was the issue from healing in order to survive another hit. But the lunge here is pretty good. So it's like, realistically, it's like giving a small Spirit Eye Selene buff to her. So I think that she'll be usable. I mean, I picked T-Serin sometimes in World Arena as a last pick versus Cleave, and it works. You don't just slam her, but when she works, and I think this entire set on her is actually really good. The Dispel 1 buff from the target also pretty good, because she does do silenced. And so she could dispel, I don't know what hero though, to be honest. Like, most immunity bringers are like, you know, I guess Ran immunity and doesn't fully cleave your team, but you can dispel the entire team and well, dispel 1 buff. I think it would be immunity though, immunity first, and then yeah, it's immunity, yeah, of course, it's Ran. So dispel the immunity, and you can silence the opponent's like DPS. So I think it's pretty good value. And then increases damage out by Moonlight Shadow by 10%. This is probably good if you have Alexa's basket and access to Soul Burn. But again, I do think that lunge would be the go-to EE here, and then maybe Moonlight Shadow, maybe on a defensive team. But I don't see her being too viable right now in defense. So that's pretty much it. That's all I wanted to cover in this session of RBTL. Mainly the event. What I think about it, what this means for the future, how Smilegate plans, and I guess the opening of China server really changes how they go about in terms of the economy, in terms of in-game economy, what you can get and stuff like that. So we'll see. But so far I like it. I like the changes. It's something spicy, something to look forward to, something hype. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I'm gonna end this here for the video recording. If you guys have Discord, check out the Discord server, follow me on Twitter, subscribe to YouTube if you haven't, and as always, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next time.